And welcome to our Wednesday motivation. Can you believe, Daryl, it's the middle of the week?
Already, quick and fast.
Yes, it doesn't take long. And guys, we are so glad that you stopped by and you joined us for a little bit of inspiration and a place where we by to encourage you as you continue in your walk with the Lord.
Yeah, one thing that we've learned over the years in our walk with the Lord is that everything that we have received is not just for us. You know, God gives us wisdom, God gives us knowledge, God blesses us in so many different ways that we are to pass that on to other people. You know, and that's what we're doing here today, just passing on some of the things that the Lord has given to us.
And I love the fact that the place where we're spending a little time and wanting to drop some encouragement is we've been married for over 31 years. And Daryl is being a pastor and sat and encouraged. And he and I have both sat across from couples. And we can openly and honestly say marriage is hard work.
It's hard work, and it's something that you really have to work at. Notice the word work. Sometimes people think that because they feeling each other, they come into a marriage, that the marriage is going to be on autopilot, and it's not. You know, and so you have to make adjustments. You have to make turns. You have to pivot. You have to do different things to keep the marriage going in the right direction. And even though, as my wife said, you know, we've been married all of these years, we've sat across from couples through some hardships and all of those different types of things, whatever. That does not mean that we have it all together.
Right.
Never think the fact that, you know, we have reached the mountaintop. As Apostle Paul says, you know, they don't think that I've already obtained.
That's right.
You know, but we're pressing and we're striving.
That's right. And we work at it day by day. It's a process because marriage requires a dying of ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. It requires one or the both at different times dying and saying, you know what? I'll take this one for Christ.
Yes.
I'll do something a little bit different today so that I can look a little bit more like Jesus to my partner. And I love the fact, Daryl, that as you started this, you opened it up saying that there is a manual.
Yes.
And it is the Bible. The Bible, God's word, has given us the example and the blueprint as to how marriage should look and work.
Yes, and if we apply the rules to the marriage, you know, then the marriage works out. As we talked about before, how that, you know, what causes marriages to fail is when, even Christian marriages to fail, is when one person or both persons stop allowing God to be God. Meaning that they say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to move in this particular way, even though the Lord is commanding them to do so.
Yeah, I know you equate it when we're sitting with couples a lot of times, Daryl. You'll equate it to when there's a yield sign and one or both parties have decided, I'm not yielding, you're not yielding. And what happens when nobody wants to yield? There's a wreck. And it winds up being a mess. And I know today we wanted to talk about something that happens. Not only does it happen in marriage, it happens in just about any type of relationship. But the marriage one is what we're talking today. And we're talking about conflict resolution.
Yes.
How to do it and how to handle it well and how to fight fair.
Right. Right.
How to fight
Right.
fair and how to do it in such a way that it honors God and it does not damage one another.
Yeah. Even though, you know, we've been married, I could say almost 32 years, you know, we never had a fight. We never had an argument.
We have anointed conversation.
And if anybody thinks they're going to get married and you're going to be in a long-term relationship and you're never going to have any conflict, you are sadly mistaken.
That's
you
right.
know, because even when you think about it with yourself, you don't always agree with yourself.
That's right.
You know,
That's
there's
right.
things that you have said, there's things that you have done, and you turn around later on and go, I shouldn't have said that.
Yep.
I shouldn't have done that. So if you can't agree with you all the time, what makes you think you're going to agree with somebody else all of the time?
That's right. So if you're running into someone and you're looking at a couple and they're going, no, we never fight. Somebody's not being who they really need to be in the relationship.
Well, they just straight out lying. Yeah, straight out lying. You know, I was taught years ago, and always remember this: when you're looking for somebody to lead, when you're looking for somebody to counsel you or to give you some insight, look for somebody who walks with a limp.
That's right.
When they walk with a limp, you know, you go back to Jacob. You know, Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord, and Jacob ended up walking with a limp because the Lord touched him. you know. And so when you talk to people again and want to seek advice, look for somebody who walks with a limp, meaning somebody who's had direct contact with the Lord, and the Lord has walked them through the issues.
That's right.
That you're talking about.
That's right. They've managed to find the blessing in their brokenness,
Yes.
so to speak, and they see what God is doing. And even in the midst of marriage, Daryl, sometimes fights occur, and that really just means that, you know what, you brought something to the table, I brought something to the table. How do we handle this appropriately? Because we're not always going to agree, but we have to remember who we're fighting or arguing with.
Right.
And I have to remember that at the core of this now, I have to keep in the back of my mind that my partner really does love me. Because if I think that they don't, then there's an issue.
Yeah, many times the fight in the marriage is really a fight for the marriage.
That's good.
Because
That's
again,
good.
the enemy, is going to attack anything that God establishes and said is good. And that's why the Bible tells us that we fight not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and wickedness in high places. So again, many times the fight in the marriage is really a fight for the marriage.
That's good.
The enemy is attacking. And therefore, we have to understand again, where this conflict is really coming from, who's stirring up this thing, and how to overcome. The enemy wants us to fight in the flesh. Me against you, fighting in the flesh. Because when we fight in the flesh, we lose. But when we take the fight from the flesh into the spirit, then we win.
That's good. That's good. And I know one of the things that so many people go, one of the things we want to make sure in our marriage is that, we never let the sun go down in our anger. So before we go to bed, we're going quick. Okay, I'm sorry. Now let's go to bed. No.
And some people ain't been to bed in years. Because they say, I can't let the sun go down on my anger, And so they've been out taking no-nos.
Yes, for a long time.
No, what that means is that you need to resolve that conflict as soon as possible.
That's good.
But also, as the Bible says, there is a time and a season for everything under the sun, which means that sometimes you just have to put that thing off. Sometimes it's like, no, I'm not in the right frame of mind to have this conversation right now. Yes, this is an important conversation, and we need to have this conversation. But right now, I'm a mess because I'm in the flesh.
Yeah.
So I need to take a time out. I need to back up, and we can do this later on, or we can do this tomorrow. And we have to respect that.
Yes.
Because sometimes, we can push and we want to resolve the thing right there, and we're pushing so hard that we're not making the thing better, we're making it worse.
That's good. That's really good there. And I think that those things can help when, as a couples can sit down and say, okay, these are some guidelines that we're going to put into place, that when we starting to get at this level, we need to back off, pull back, go pray, and then come back again, and let's resolve this before it gets out of hand. And those are things that can be set ahead of time. And they can be discussed ahead of time that can help you out to know how to handle conflict appropriately.
Yeah, even though you set them out ahead of time, it's still a fight.
Oh,
because,
for sure.
Because in the middle of the battle, again, that
sure.
flesh is
That's
raging.
Right. That's right.
And when your flesh is raging, you as a Christian or aspiring person who wants to be a Christian, you have to understand again that, hey, I'm going on the deep side. I need to back up. Jesus says, be angry, but sin not.
That
right?
part.
And so when you start saying things, when you start doing things, that's out of order, then again when you're in the flesh.
Yeah, and that takes the ability to be able to know oneself well, and keeping even in the forefront, Daryl, where the book of James says that we ought to be quick to listen. That's why we have one mouth and we have two ears, to be willing to get not listening to respond.
Right.
So often we want to listen and we're listening, but because we want to give our response next, but to be listening to understand.
Sometimes again, you're not even listening. You just quiet. You just waiting for a break to jump in.
That's right.
You might not be saying anything, but you're not listening to what's being said either.
That's
you're
right.
just waiting for a little break to jump in to make your point of view.
Yes, and that's where And that's where we have to be so conscious of those things, and remembering also too, Daryl, that the differences that's in my mate, that's in my partner, God really didn't give those to us to make us suffer.
Right.
He really didn't. It's those very things that we need that can make us a really good team.
Right.
But those can also be the things that irritate us the most about our
Yes.
partners.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It really
Yes.
can. That's why so many couples drive separately to church, and church functions well.
Yeah, we did that for years and years and years, because Sunday morning was a battle. It was like, come on, woman, let's go. And she's doing this, that, and another, you know. And then so by the time we got to church, praise the name of Jesus.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna work. I see you when we get there.
Exactly.
And learning that, you know what, his ability to say, okay, because he's a runner, he sees a mountain and says, let's go take it. I see the mountain, I gotta assess it, I need to measure it, I want to know how long the mountain's been there, how old it is. But those things
balance us.
Yes, they complement us in our relationship, because sometimes it causes him to slow down, and other times it causes me to go ahead and catch up and go, now you're not just assessing, now you're actually being in disobedience, and you need to step out in faith.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So those are good things, and understanding that your differences can be a blessing in your marriage.
Yes. And again, we have to make sure as much as possible, like I said, that we are on one accord. So that's when we go back to the manufacturer's specs. We go back to what the Lord said about marriage and the duties that he gave to the man and the duties that he gave to the woman. Understanding again that we are different. I know in this world, in this society, they try to say that, there is no difference between male and female, but that's a bunch of malarkey.
Yeah.
There's a true difference. And so God, gave instructions to a man because he created that man and he knows how that man operates, and the same with the woman. So we go back to the manufacturer's specs, operate in that grain, and that makes things go a whole lot smoother.
And it does too, Daryl. And also something I want to make sure we bring out is we must be ready and take the time to heal from offenses that occur in a marriage. Because what happens is, if we haven't healed from an offense, or we haven't healed from something that took place and you're still walking with that wound, you're going to hear your mate's response through a wounded ear instead of a gentle remark that they make, because I'm still holding that, and the enemy wants to keep us there. That's why we must be in the spirit of saying, okay, let me go ahead and work on this. Let me work through the process of forgiveness, so that we can be whole in the relationship, and then you can hear things appropriately, not through a wound.
Yeah, because when you hold on to a hurt, you're really damaging yourself. I know it's hard to let go of hurts, but the quickest and the best way to let go of a hurt is to pray. Pray for the good of that individual. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were just talking about hurts and wounds and whatnot. And I'm telling them to pray and say, well, you don't pray the prayers. So some, like David did in some of the Old Testament prayer, Lord, knock the eyes out, Lord, knock the teeth out, pull the beard out,
Not that one.
No, you pray for their good. And when you can generally pray for somebody else's good, then that is going to heal you.
Amen.
The further you can carry that prayer into the heart of the Lord, the quicker your heart is going to be healed.
Right. That's right. That's good. And I wanted to say that because a big point is the enemy loves to twist what the other person says.
Yes.
And when we can take a minute and go, okay, wait a minute, did they really say that? Or did they say it from this point of view? And when we can come back and have that conversation instead of just responding and going, wait. Help me understand. So what you're saying is,
yes,
that really, really, really helps.
Qualifying questions. Qualifying questions is, again, to bring clarity to what is being said or what you thought you heard. Again, as my wife just said, the enemy loves to take our words and twist them, and get us to run off on a tangent on what we thought we've heard. Even in the younger days of our marriage, we're mad at each other, and getting the silent treatment for, a couple of days and whatever. And then we sit there and we talk about it and look up and go, oh, that whole thing was just a big mistake.
That's not what you said. No. I
Exactly.
don't even know that word. It wasn't what I
But
said.
here you go, now you got this, like I said, this conflict in your house, this tension in your house for a couple of days. When you operate or you move on, so the enemy will love to say, oh, well, see, they said such and such and such and such. And it's because they said such and such and such and such, then that you need to act like
Yes.
this. And then when your mates see you acting like that, then they go, oh, you going to act like that? Well, I'm going to act like this, right? And many times, again, it's all a big misunderstanding. And so a qualifying question is, hey, wait a minute, hold up. Pause for a second. When you said such and such and such and such, what is it that you are saying? What is it that you want me to get out of this conversation? We've done this so many times, like I say, in premarital counseling, because, in a marriage, one of the biggest things is communication.
Yes.
If the communication is off, the marriage is going to be
100%.
off, right? And so these qualifying questions. So hold up. Let me understand this. When you said such and such and such and such, did you mean this, that, another? And listen.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to get out of this? What are you really trying to say to me? These are qualifying questions, and I guarantee you they will squash a lot of conflict that the enemy is trying to kick up in your home and in your family.
Yeah, that's really good. They're helping to bring clarity to the communication.
Yes.
Because we have to remember,
Yes.
The enemy's core thing is he loves confusion.
Yes.
He is the author of it. And when
Yes.
you find that in the midst of your home or in the midst of your marriage, you find the confusion, that is birthed from the enemy, and that's where you step back and go, okay, this isn't how we should be functioning. This isn't working. Let's come back. Let's get to the center and go back and meet at God and establishing those rules of engagement too.
Yeah, and sometimes it's actually even good to write down some questions or some thoughts, because sometimes again we can get emotional. And because we're emotional, we can get off point, But if you write it down before you go back in, then your mind is clear. You've had time to think about it. You have time to pray about it. And so now it's like, okay, well, Lord, you know my heart. I'm not trying to make things worse. I'm not trying to make things better, but I'm trying to make things better.
Amen.
So help me to communicate clearly how I'm feeling or, what I think is happening.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Dylan. And bringing and helping to understand, even in those times of talking, that we don't get historical, not hysterical, and historical. And what I mean is, we can't go get something from 15 years ago and bring it up to right now because we're in that moment. And when we can keep those things in the front of our mind, keep it fresh, keep it present,
Right.
Keep it present, and know that I'm not here to wound my mate, not using something that has been said or that happened before to wound them, but we're here to worship and work together. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, something that I told my wife years ago is that, and I meant that, and I still mean that, is that I will never intentionally hurt you. Now I know sometimes, in my ignorance, whatnot, I might say something to do something that hurts her.
It's on both ends.
But I didn't intentionally do that. I would never intentionally do anything to hurt her, And so one of the things that you do is when next you have conversation as the relationship and the marriage is growing, there's conversations that you have about things that happened in your past that might have hurt you or damaged you, whatever, And you never take that thing in the middle of the battle, or in the middle of a conflict or whatever, and intentionally wound your mate. See, this is why such and such and such happened to you when you were 5 or when you were 10, and you totally crushed that person. Yeah, you won the argument, you won the battle, but you lost the war. Because you brought a separation between you and your mate, and now your mate is saying, hey, I can't trust them with the deepest parts of my heart because they're going to use it against me.
And that's why it's so important, guys, why we really wanted to talk about this, about setting up the proper lines and to decide how you're going to handle conflict, because it's coming. And when you can decide ahead of time, in my heart, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to respond. And knowing that you might not always want to do it, it may not always take place, but if that's your goal and you say that as a couple, this is how we want to work, it can be a beautiful thing. Marriage, you can truly see a covenant relationship of how God established things in your home and in your marriage. And that's our goal, to bring things full circle here.
Right. After 31, almost 32 years of marriage, this is how we do it.
Yep, and we're praying that as we show you how we do it, that it encourages you to do it in such a way that honors the Lord, guys. We're so glad that you stopped by here, that you'll come back and join us Sunday morning, 10:30, right here, as we continue to go through the Word.
God bless.